Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Takodash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and elders of GMS who rule the world. Peace and salutations to the elect. My name is Arinal. The title of the video is Let the Weak Say I Am Strong. And ultimately, Nero 47 decided to block the whole Strait of Hormuz, right, so that no one could enter into it. But China said the strait is open for them, right? And today they went through it with a ship, right? That was a ship that was already sanctioned by America. So not only did they go against what America said about blocking the strait, they went with a ship that America said is sanctioned, that's not allowed to be, on the seas or whatnot, which is what this video is what the guy said in the video. All right, so it says in this article here, the Strait of Hormuz is open to us. China warns U.S. against blocking Iranian ports. Right, you got to remember, as the guy's going to say, America already did this when they went over there to Venezuela. All right, I think that's Isaiah 10. Let me see. Well, where the scriptures say, as for his enemies, he puffed at them. He was at All right, bear with me 1 second. Okay, Psalms 10. Psalms 10 and 5. And the point I wanted was that he puffed at his enemies, right? This devil already did this one time to China with Venezuela, and they're trying to do it again, right? That's why they're saying they're blocking, the strait, which doesn't allow Russia, China, or anybody else to do trade with Iran. NLT says for Psalms 10 and 5, it says, yet they succeed in everything they do. They do not see your punishment awaiting them. They sneer at all their enemies, right? And the punishment is World War III and the nuclear missiles being shot, right? And their allies turning on them. With everything that this cruel Lord is doing is causing the world to turn on America and Israel, right? KJV for Psalms 10 and 5 says, his ways are always grievous. That judgments are far above out of his sight. Yeah, his ways are always grievous. The man trying to control the world, as Habakkuk 2 and 5, Habakkuk 2, goes into, he gathers unto him all nations and people unto him all people, right? Habakkuk 2, 5 says, yeah, also because he transgresseth by wine, his policy, right, his laws and things like that, he's a proud man. Now that keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations and heap unto him all people. Right? So he's trying to control the world, trying to control China. Like I said, he blocked Venezuela oil, which China had deals with Venezuela, and now we're over here in Iran, and now he's trying to block that situation from going on, right? And that's definitely going to cause a problem. Okay. Psalms 10 and 5, KJV, his ways are always grievous. Judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. Right. And this is how he's puffing at his enemies. Right. But, trying to block the strait. But China said they're not having it this time. Right. China's foreign minister has condemned the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports as dangerous and irresponsible, warning against any effort to obstruct Chinese vessels. On Monday, Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun said in a statement, we have trade and energy agreements with Iran. We expect others not to interfere in our affairs. The Strait of Hormuz is open to us. His warning came as at least 4 Iran-linked ships crossed the Strait of Hormuz on Tuesday after the Trump administration declared the start of its blockade. right? So this is the nation saying that they are strong, right? And ultimately, what this is going to lead to, because now we're going to see what Nero 47 and the small hatters do, all right? Because they wanted to close down the strait, and China said no. This Joel 3 and 9, it says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. It says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai." Ultimately, the angels coming with Yahushai. "Let the heathen be weakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat," right? The Lord's judgment, right? It says, "For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about." And ultimately, it's that region over there, right, near Israel, the Levant region, what they call the Middle East, where all the nations are being gathered right now because of Iran and Israel and America. It says, "Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full, the fast overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai is near in the valley of decision," right? And this is a step that's leading to this prophecy taking place, right? Which they're already over there, but the war is going to heat up with Trump trying to block out these other countries, right? Russia, China, things like that. It says so pretty much that was the point on this. You get this video.
China just broke the American siege and blockade against the Iranian ports by passing through the strait even after the United States military said it began a blockade. Yesterday, there were multiple statements and warnings coming from China, and today they're clearly implementing this warning and these threats that they had. So what is the United States going to do now after China broke, in essence, this blockade? We're going to go through all of the details, but before we do, yesterday there were multiple threats and warnings coming from China, especially the Foreign Ministry and the Minister of Defense, who said that China, from its perspective, the strait is open and they get the flow. They asked the United States not to escalate further. They said any trade between China and Iran is between China and Iran. The United States, in essence, has no business in this. The Foreign Ministry escalated further. Some people were also talking about a potential war with China if the United States tries to impose that. You see, the United States already hurt China through Venezuela. One day after a Chinese delegation was in Venezuela, they had the abduction of President Maduro, and Venezuela was supplying oil to China from a distance, but they were still supplying, and the United States wanted to choke China, in essence, and control the oil flow to China as leverage in negotiations, in economic trade, in political, geopolitical situations, whatever it is, the United States that wants to have leverage with China. So now with Iran, it would become a bigger card in the hands of the United States if they control the oil flow. But that's why China had stark warnings, the ones that we spoke about yesterday from the defense minister, saying that these are dealings between us and Iran, and in essence, they have no say in what happens between them and Iran. So they made these statements. The United States didn't have any sort of response. And now they're taking action. And they're taking action by letting a ship that is under the sanctions of the United States pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So we're talking about a double challenge here coming from China. This was the report just today. U.S. sanctioned Chinese tanker breaks the Hormuz blockade. Oil tanker is the first known to transit the strait since U.S. announced its blockade amid deceptive tracking tactics and cracks in efforts to choke off maritime oil flows. A Chinese-owned tanker under US sanctions is moving now through the Strait of Hormuz, according to this report. It has transited the Strait of Hormuz, marking the first known passage through the strategic waterway since the current blockade took hold. The oil chemical carrier Rich Starry, owned by Shanghai Xuanrun Shipping, a firm included in the US sanctions list. Now, if we stop with this point here, this is very important because the United States, from its perspective, China's crossing two lines that they are setting. One of them is the sanctions, and the other one is the blockade. And in essence, if the United States isn't going to do anything about it, that is very humiliating for Donald.
Right, and that's the point. So not only did China go through the blockade, they sent a sanctioned ship that's wanted by America and basically said, do something about it. Right, this war with Iran showed these other nations how weak America really is. Right, this is Isaiah 14:4 says that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city cease. The Lord Yahweh Bashmiah shall have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindered. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet, they break forth into singing. Yeah, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fellows come up against us, right? He's talking about America, basically the wicked, right? These 1948ers, the Rothschilds, the people that run the world, right? Going to America too, of course, right? They're all Edomites. It says, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It have raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say to thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? See, so these devils, these heathen out here no longer afraid of these devils. Right? China sending a ship that's already wanted by America through the strait that they're supposedly blocking, telling them to do something about it. It says that thy pump is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy bowels, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. Right? How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? All right, and this is just talking about the elites. All right. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yahweh. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregations in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Right? It says, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell to the sides of the pits. Right? And that's what's going to happen. Ultimately, with this devil, doing everything he's doing, making the move that he's doing, these nations are going to do something about it. All right, let me grab this real quick for Lucifer. Sunday morning, correct? Lucifer, light bearer. All right, and these what the 1948ers, going up to the Rothschilds, they know and understand everything, right? They took over, kingdom, they took over worlds, they took over like history, documentation, right? They have the knowledge of what happened before and things like that, and they set up this system where everything is pretty much on one point, like tracked and traced. It's not to its full extent like how the MOTB is going to be, but everything is documented like in computers and things like that. So they know, and understand things, okay? And that's what it's talking about. Job 9:24 says the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. All right, so these are the ones that's going to be brought down. All right, and they're making the moves to bring it upon themselves.
Donald Trump, and in effect, it's collapsing the whole blockade. And if he would try and counter any other ships, it would prove to the whole world that he's only not doing anything to those Chinese ships because they're powerful. And that's the language that the United States understands, power. they have leverage. Now, despite the fact that there were warnings yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised if there were many threats that we did not hear about without these diplomatic statements coming from China. What did this report continue with? It's very interesting. Ship tracking data from marine traffic showed the vessel crossing the strait early on Tuesday after circling near the choke point late Monday. The tanker had departed from Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates and now is en route to China. US CENTCOM said on Sunday that a blockade will be enforced impartially against vessels of all nations entering or leaving Iranian ports in the Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. Shortly after, US President Donald Trump said that any Iranian ships that come close to the blockade will be immediately eliminated. They're also talking about false signals. In a separate development, a tanker that left Iran's Khark Island oil terminal was detected in the strait on Monday while broadcasting misleading automatic identification system data, falsely signaling that it originated from Saudi Arabia. Such tactics are becoming increasingly common. Since the start of the conflict, multiple vessels have attempted to obscure their movements by falsifying tracking data or switching off their AIS transponders altogether. So in effect,
all right. So, basically the weak saying that they're strong, and now we'll just have to see, what's happening with what America's going to do. But at the end of the day, it's the small hires that's going to bring, draw, and drag America out to this battle, to this war. So they don't, basically they don't have a choice to just make a deal or continue the peace talks and things like that. Ultimately, they're going to have to fight, and it's going to lead to World War III, right? Or basically like try their best to block the strait and cause a problem where, they get into like a firefight with China or Russia or something like that, to also draw those individuals into the war, So I just want to report on that. Lord willing, you edify from the lesson. Shalom to those elected, which consist of men, women, and children. Shalom.